Peace, family. What's going on? Today is the day we start our educational series. So let's get pumped for this one, family, because this is important. You'll realize how deep the rabbit hole goes when it comes to education. Now, the series is about reviving education because we understand that in the Black community, education has become a scarce thing utilized within our people because of some things that maybe are less understood than what we understand. You know, you have to really dive into it. And I don't want to waste any more time, family, so let's get right into it. So today I'm going to start by defining what education is. And this is a definition that I found in the dictionary, okay? And it's going to relate to a lot of the stuff that I talk about. So we're going to address a few topics today for the first video. It goes like this: education, the process of receiving or giving systematic instruction, especially at a school or a university. So it's literally saying that it is instruction that is systematically set in place for you to give or you to receive at any sort of school, or it jumps right to a university. Now, you'll find the irony in that definition because it's going to make sense to what we have to address it with. So that's their version of education. We define education as a way of enlightening a person, allowing them to understand something that they did not understand previously. Now, that can be literally anything, and it's not limited to a school or a university. You can educate yourself on many platforms in many ways. So you have to understand that education is not limited to an institution. And that's what we want people to understand. Education is a broad subject. It is a broad topic. So do not limit yourself to be educated only by a school or a university or any institution with a name. Education is all around us. You can learn from animals. You can learn from ways of life. You can learn all sorts of things that does not require you to go to a school or a university. Now, I'm not knocking higher education. I'm not at all, because I, for one, have a degree. But what people have to understand is that education is all around us. You can go to YouTube and learn how to change a tire. You can go to YouTube and learn how to cook eggs. You can educate yourself literally by your own will. It's not limited to going to a university or school. That's what I'm trying to address, people. I'm not trying to knock schooling, because I understand the importance of schooling. It unlocks certain avenues of professionalism. I get that. And I want people to be mindful of me not bashing schools and universities. So the next question that I have is, why do kids and adults stray away from education, especially in the Black community? You know, growing up for myself, there were not a lot of people going to college. There were not a lot of adults that had college education. Usually their education stopped at high school or they dropped out of high school. It was a big problem, but understanding the circumstances of an individual, I found a few things that really stopped a lot of people in the Black community from going to school, and it stems from a multitude of things. So the first thing that I found out was the cost. College is very, very, very expensive, and it's only getting more expensive as the years progress. So you have to understand that when you come from a background of people who do not have the money to send their children to school, we rely solely on, drumroll, scholarships. I, for one, was one of those people who had a full ride scholarship, and if it wasn't for that scholarship, I would have never went to school, because the scholarship literally paid for every bit of my tuition. Had it not paid for tuition, I don't know where I would have been. I would have had student loans, but if it hadn't been for that scholarship in the first place, I would have been in school. Cost is a huge thing, and a lot of people don't realize that when you live in an area in your community that is impoverished in a way, college isn't even in the conversation. You literally would leave high school to go find a job to work for the rest of your life. And that's a terrible way to live, because you want to pursue education. And like I said, it's not limited to a school or university. Education is all around us. But growing up, we didn't learn that. We were never taught that education was all around us. We were taught to go to school to get a better life. But what people don't understand is most people who graduate end up in a job that they hate, or they end up somewhere that they absolutely did not want to be. Okay? It does not work out all the time. The second thing I wanted to bring up behind why kids and adults stray away from college or education or something along the lines of that is the location. A lot of times, you literally aren't able to go to a place that you want to go to. You might not have the mode of transportation, so it hinders you from doing that. And you really cannot help it. There are a lot of people that I knew who live in an area where education was really far-fetched because of where they lived, because of the systematic oppression that they had to go through in their neighborhoods. Education was not the way of life for them. So it's very important that we try to understand why people struggle with trying to pursue education in its fullest form. The last thing I want to bring up behind why kids and adults stray away from it is because it is systematically not set up for black people. It's just not. I want you all to go out and do your research on the beginnings of higher education, how it got started and who it got started by. Education was a privilege for black people when you think about the slavery era, but it was a right for white people. White people had the right to go pursue education, but we thought that civil rights was going to allow us to go into those white institutions and prove everybody wrong. No, their educational system was solely set up for them. So once we infiltrated it, a lot of us did not understand how we were going to benefit from it, or we did not benefit from it. Now, there were a lot of people who benefited from it because they wanted to stay inside that system. When you're a person who does not want to stay inside the system and pursue your own dreams and goals, the systematic system behind education is not working for black people. It's just not. Now, some people are very successful at it, and I've said this. Some people really succeed, they get these degrees, and they want to work for somebody. They want to fall into these places where they have jobs, where they have to work for somebody. But I want you all to think back to June 1st, 1921. That is when the bombing happened on Negro Wall Street in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Negro Wall Street was a community of black people that spanned it for like 35 blocks of North Tulsa, Oklahoma. They had over 600 black businesses. They had their own school system. They had their own hospitals. They had their own banks. They had their own individual little businesses that made that community thrive. And people were succeeding at it because our dollars circulated in that community, boosting the black economy in that area. I need you all to understand that they created their own school system, so blacks were succeeding at a higher rate. In the school system today we are forced to go into, or the school system we don't have a choice to be in, we don't succeed at as much as a higher rate as we did back when that was existing. So my thing to you all is that we have to get back to Negro Wall Street, or call it something different, but something along the lines of that, because that is the blueprint for our very freedom. And our very freedom to pursue education and be successful at whatever we want to do. You have to understand this, people. I know it's hard to understand it because it's hard to break away from something that you've been used to for so long. But you have to understand that when you break free, you are free to do as you please. I seen this post a little bit ago about how it said when we had the phones that had wires on them, we were free. But now that we have phones that don't have wires on them, we're enslaved again. That's because we rely on our phones so much that if we lose our phone, we would literally not be able to function in life. You have to look at that in the same light as education. We used to be free when we pursued our education, but now we have relied heavily so much on the systematic education that has been placed in front of us for us to fail, that we literally are enslaved by it, people. This is why education is important, because the various topics that I just covered are literally reasons behind why we don't succeed as much. Now, I'm not saying that they're the end-all be-all, but they are reasons why we don't succeed as much. It's because of these things and many more that I did not address. So we have to understand the places that we're at now, where we've been, and where we need to go for the future. Because our kids are the very existence of our future. When we're dead and gone, What are they going to have to ensure that they're successful? Think about that, people.
Throwing away money at a strip club.